Hey, what's up, VC? It's Steve again, Harmless Rebel, and it's time for this is kind of a mixed vinyl update. No specific genre. There's no hard rock or heavy metal, no country in here. Those will be in their own updates, but it's just kind of a hodgepodge of stuff that I've picked up over the last couple months. It's been a while since I did kind of a mixed bag type of update, so let's just kind of jump into it. First up, I just picked this up in the last couple of days. I found it for really cheap. It was one that was missing from the collection. The Final Cut from Pink Floyd. The thing is, VG Plus to near mint. Picked it up for $12, man. You can't beat that. This is kind of a really dark album for Floyd. Great album though. Not a favorite by many. You know, I still dig it. This one is another I picked up maybe a month ago. Paid $2 or $3 for it. Breakfast in America from Supertramp. I'm not a huge Supertramp fan. I don't go and seek out all their stuff, but when I run across it for $2, $3, I'll grab it every time. They like I said, they do have a couple songs from every album that I like. Next up, Madonna, Like a Prayer. Not a huge Madonna fan. Kind of a guilty pleasure of mine, I guess. Growing up a child of the 80s, you know. You just grew up. There was no way around listening to Madonna, you know, and a lot of songs I really dig from her from the 80s and a couple songs from the early 90s, that period. I don't really like anything she's done in the last 20 years or so, but the stuff she did prior to that, I really did dig. So, next up, Molly Hatchet, Double Trouble Live. Killer Molly Hatchet live, you know. And let's be honest, most Molly Hatchet's pretty killer. Even their stuff that's not that good is still pretty good. And if you're a fan of Molly Hatchet, Leonard Skinner, 38 Special, any Southern rock in general, you'll dig this album. Next up, just building up the Genesis collection, A Trick of the Tail. A lot of people consider this their best album. I really can't pick a best album for Genesis. They really haven't put out anything I don't like. Even their stuff in the mid to late 80s that people kind of turn away from, I dig that stuff too. So this is definitely in the top 5 region, top 3 region, but it's mandatory. If you're into prog, if you're into Genesis, you got to have that album. Next, I'm really stoked to run across this. The Ladder by Yes. 1999, just a killer album. It was not pressed here in the U.S. This was Europe only. This is number 432. I don't know how many they made. All I know is it's limited. You know, sounds killer album, and it's Yes. You know. Next up, we got Zeppelin. I don't talk about Zeppelin too much. I am a big Zeppelin fan, though. They don't have anything that I didn't love. Even Coda, which most people talk down on, I don't like. I think it's a great album. I have early pressings of all of their albums, with the exception of this one. And Physical Graffiti, which I didn't have any copies of at all. I run across them all the time, but they're always trashed. And for the Zeppelin, I want it to be, I want it to be really clean, crystal clear sounding. So I'm real picky about what I buy. And I was out digging and just didn't find anything that day, and I had a couple bucks to spend. So I went ahead and grabbed this. These sound amazing. All of these do. I've heard, I'm sure you've all heard everybody talk about them. Eventually, I'll pick up all of them. I'm not much for the ones with the second album. I'm just not a big fan of the material that they put out. As the additional material it's all right. I've listened to most of it on Spotify, on the internet. I just don't think it's worth the extra $10, $15, whatever it is for that extra record. With the exception of Led Zeppelin 1. When I do pick up a copy of Zeppelin 1, the repress, I will get the one with the additional album because it's a live. It's a concert. If they were all concerts, I'd have picked up every single one of them. I think that would have been a better route. I mean, I do like hearing that additional footage. It interests me. I kind of dig it, but it's not stuff that I'll ever listen to other than that one time. So And like I said, I will end up picking up all of those. I've been running across so much good stuff lately that I just haven't gotten to it. It's pretty far down my list of priorities, and they've printed 50 million of each one, so they're not going to disappear anytime soon. Next up, a Bone Mint copy of Rattle and Hum, another 80s band that I really like. I only like their stuff from the 80s, 80 to 89. They've got a couple of songs here and there after that, but I'm just not a fan of that part of their career. This is one that I was missing, and to find it in bone stock or bone mint condition for $9, couldn't pass that up. Next is Jimmy Spheeris, Isle of View. Love this album cover. Just a good record to listen to when you want to chill. It's just kind of a laid-back, really mellow album, and I like to just put it in when I want to kick back, maybe the last listen before bed. Picked this up from $1 bin, actually a $1.89 bin. This is Point of No Return from Kansas. Almost every song on here is a hit, but the biggest hit is Dust in the Wind. Just a great album, and $2 couldn't pass it up. Next up, another live, Foghat Live. Just killer album. Definitely have that in your collection if you're a fan of rock, hard rock, southern rock. Robin Trower. What is this one called? In City Dreams. I found this for $2. I wasn't going to pass it up. I just recently got into Robin Trower, and I just can't get enough of him, man. If you like Jimi Hendrix, you've got to get Robin Trower. The guitar work is amazing, especially those first few albums, the first 3 or 4 albums that Trower put out in the 70s. Very Hendrix inspired, which, by the way, is what we're listening to in the background. Axis Bold as Love is by far my favorite Jimi Hendrix album. It always has been. I don't need to say anything about it. Camel Mirage. I had heard of Camel, but I wasn't really familiar with their work. Just killer 70s prog. I really dig it, and I'll definitely be looking for more of their albums. I paid $3 for it. So I couldn't pass up. And like I said, killer 70s prog. Win, Lose, or Draw from the Allman Brothers. Just a great classic album. Anything from the Allman Brothers in the 60s or 70s is worth picking up. Dickie Betts, Duane Allman. It just doesn't get much better than that. Just amazing music. And I paid $2 or $3 for this. So then again, add to my Genesis collection. Genesis is self-titled from '83. I actually had the Japanese pressing of this in my hand. There was a mint Japanese pressing at the record store for $25, and then I was going through his Just In pile, and he had this one, and it's mint. The vinyl, it's got a little mark here from an old price tag, but other than that, it's in pretty much mint condition. And I asked him how much he wanted for this, and he wanted $2. And I sat there looking at the two of them for what must have been 20 minutes, and just decided to spend the $2.
Mr. Businessman.
Next up, we've got ELO Time. I see this album all the time. This one is mint. I mean, the sleeve, the album is beautiful. And I always pass it up, mainly because of the time that this came out. This was 81. I want to say this came out right after the Xanadu soundtrack, which I have because it is ELO. But it's definitely my least favorite work that ELO has put out. Now, don't get me wrong. There's some good songs on there, and there's a couple big hits on that album. But when you compare it to the rest of their work, it's just not that good. So I held off on this just because it came out at that period that I wasn't really digging on. Man, I was missing out. This album is killer. Highly recommend picking this one up. That was really good, and it really surprised me. Next up, I picked this up yesterday for $2. Nice VG Plus copy of Trace Hombres from ZZ Top 73. Yeah, 73 on London Records. I've had 2 or 3 copies of this. The copy that I had was the sleeve was just beat to hell. The vinyl played good, but it wasn't in the best condition. So I'll send that out to somebody as VCLT. But a really nice upgrade here. Then we got Linda Ronstadt and the Stone Ponies. This is a comp that kind of came out after Linda Ronstadt got big. If you're not familiar with the Stone Ponies, that was her first band. It was a 3-piece, and it was more of a folk psych, I guess, some psych elements, but mostly folk album from the 60s. I mean, her voice has that country element to it you can't get away from, which is funny because she's from Tucson, Arizona, but I mean, that's beside the point. It's just a killer album. Stone Ponies were really good. I don't think they get enough credit. You know, you always hear about Peter, Paul, and Mary, and I'm trying to think who the other. I don't even think James Taylor was around yet. He may have been, but I mean, you never really hear the Stone Ponies talked about when they're talking about that folk psych sound, and it's some good stuff. And I highly recommend it. You know, this is not the country rock that she got big for, in the 70s, but this definitely led to that. And like I said, this is just a good comp that's got kind of the best of the Stone Ponies. This one, I just couldn't pass it up. I'm not a huge McCartney fan. All of his albums have songs that I like, but I am a huge Beatles fan. But I ran across this. You can see this thing is in excellent condition, and it was $2, so I couldn't pass up on it. Next up, another band from the 60s that I really like. I love their music from the 60s and some of their stuff from the early 70s, and then just wasn't a fan of anything after that. Days of Future Past from the Moody Blues. This is the first pressing of this album, and you can always tell there's a stamp. I can't remember the name of the studios, but it says the name of the studio stamped in the dead space, or I'm sorry, in the matrix. But there's the inner sleeve. It's in VG to VG plus condition. It's got a tiny bit of background noise, but not too bad. So the cool thing about this album, or the interesting thing, if you've got this on CD, or if you've seen if you have a pressing from 1971 forward, it's not the original pressing. Apparently what happened is, after they recorded this in 67, after they recorded this in 67, something happened to the masters and they degraded. They weren't stored properly, or whatever the case may be. The original masters degraded. So they had to remaster in the early 70s. They remastered the tapes. So the only way to get the original sound is to get the 67 or the later pressings in 68 or 69. Anything after that is remastered. So I always thought that was kind of interesting. This is another one. This is one of those bands that I go back and forth with. There's times when I think they're really good, but I have to be in the mood for it. And when I'm in the mood, I love listening to this band. But I don't know. It just, when you compare them to some of the other psych bands that were out at the time, I just don't think that they were as good. Iron Butterfly and Agata Davida. This is an early pressing. It's got the certified gold record stamp on it. I can't find the actual year of this pressing, so I don't know if it was 68 or 69. I mean, obviously this thing has gone far past gold certified now. I'm sure it's multi-platinum all these years later. Back to the prog, Straub's Hero and Heroine. Really good prog. I mentioned this before with the last Straub's album that I showed, maybe one or two. It was a few videos ago. Some of the songs are really good. Some of them just don't hold up. They sound very 70s, and they just don't hold up as well as Yes or King Crimson or the Camel or some of the other prog bands of the era, Genesis. This one I was blown away to find it for as cheap as I did. I paid $2 for this bad boy. Lynyrd Skynyrd, pronounced Lynyrd Skynyrd. I'm a huge Skynyrd fan. I was missing this album. There's one more I'm missing as well. But I was really stoked to find this for so cheap. Then I also picked up a couple of the Foreigners that I was missing, Agent Provocateur and Four. For me, Foreigner, their first two albums is kind of where it's at. There are some songs on their later albums that I like, and they will get played every once in a while when I'm in that Foreigner mood, but Double Vision is kind of the main one for me. But their first two, actually their first three albums are pretty good. More that hard rock sound. This one, I loved this album when I was younger. Avalon from Roxy Music. It just doesn't have that same appeal for me anymore. I listen to it and I'm just not feeling it anymore. I'm not sure what in my tastes changed, that because usually there's a lot of bands that I didn't listen to when I was younger that I'm getting into now, especially bands like I've mentioned this before, like the King Diamonds, any of the bands with those really high vocals I never liked when I was younger, and I'm starting to get into that stuff now, which is funny because thinking of falsettos, very high vocal. I don't know, I'm just not feeling it. I did used to like this album. I still love this album cover though. Just a classic album cover. And then Eagles self-titled. Again, this was just one that I was missing. Huge Eagles fan. I hear a lot of people in the Linda Ronstadt connection. I'm a huge Linda Ronstadt fan, if you're familiar with that. A couple of the Eagles, Don Henley, and one more of the Eagles. Were actually Linda Ronstadt's band in the early 70s, and she had a lot to do with them getting signed and getting the exposure that they needed to form the Eagles with. I think it was the two guys from her band and then one or two of the guys from Poco that founded the Eagles. Let me throw a couple of CDs. This one's going, it's going a little long, but that's alright. A couple of the recent CDs that I picked up. First off, this one's kind of cool. This is a Victoria's Secrets exclusive. Picked it up for $1 at the thrift store. Lovesick from Bob Dylan. It's just a comp of love songs that he did over the years. Sugar Baby from Love and Theft. Things Have Changed from Essential, Bob Dylan. She Belongs to Me from Bring It All Back Home. Don't Think Twice, It's All Right from Free Will and Bob Dylan. Just really good album. Just a really good selection, a nice little comp there. This I was really stoked to run across. These are the Smashing Pumpkins singles from Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness. These are almost albums by themselves. Each one of these is about 30 minutes long, and one of them is actually something like 45 minutes long. These, along with one, I'm missing one of them, but these four plus one other would become The Aeroplane Flies High, which is a box set. I believe the box set was released in vinyl too, which I would love to get, but we've got the single for Tonight, which is 7 songs. And the funny thing is, a lot of these outtakes and all of this stuff was recorded during those sessions. A lot of this stuff is better than the stuff that was released on the album, in my opinion. But again, we got Tonight with Jupiter's Lament, Rotten Apples, great songs. Bullet with Butterfly Wings. 33. And Zero. I think the only one that I'm missing is 1979. And I actually think that from what I can see, these you could buy this way individually. From what I've seen, I don't think you could buy this one with all the songs on it without buying The Aeroplane Flies High. So I'm wondering if whoever gave these to the thrift store maybe lost the Aeroplane Flies High box and just donated them, Because from what I've seen, the actual single for this, the CD single, was only 3 songs, the one that you could buy in stores. However, this one has all 7 songs, which was part of that Aeroplane Flies High box set. So hopefully I can find the 1979 single. That's actually my favorite song by the band ever, but I would like to have that one as well to complete that set out. But I think that's going to be it. I got a couple more updates coming in the next few days. I got another hard rock and heavy metal update to do, and then I've had somebody ask me to show my Nirvana collection, so I'm going to do a video just showing my Nirvana collection. But that's pretty much it, VC. I hope you guys have a good one. Take care, and I'll talk to you soon.